Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are jumping right into two huge political clashes happening in the Philippines. You've got this really intense legal drama playing out in the Senate, and at the same time, a very public war of words between two rivals. We're going to break down what's being said, why you should care, and here's the kicker, how one source says these two things are actually connected. And believe it or not, it all kicked off with this one simple question. In a Senate hearing, this single query basically painted officials from the Department of Justice into a corner, and boom, it just explodes into this massive public showdown. So let's get into it. Okay, so our first showdown. This is all about Congressman Marcoleta going head-to-head with officials from the Department of Justice, the DOJ. And what happened next was honestly like a masterclass in legal sparring, and it all went down live in a very, very public hearing. Now, you've got to understand, this whole argument didn't just come out of nowhere. This was all happening during a massive investigation into a huge flood control scandal. And the main goal here? Follow the money. Find out who the real key players were, the so-called masterminds pulling the strings. And the whole thing, the entire debate, really came down to one thing: the Witness Protection Program, or WPP. Now I know, that sounds super technical, right? But believe me, this one little debate had the power to completely derail the entire investigation. So what even is the WPP? Well, it's a super important tool for the government. Think about it. It's what gives people who know about major crimes the courage to speak up. It gives them protection and support if they agree to testify. Honestly, without this program, trying to go after really powerful people would be almost impossible. So this whole complicated legal mess, it really boiled down to one single word: restitution. Marcoleta's argument was super straightforward. The law is the law, right? If the law doesn't say a witness has to pay back money before they get into the WPP, then you can't just make that rule up. But the DOJ, they shot back saying, well, it's just good policy. And this is where it gets good. To really drive his point home, Marcoleta pulls out this classic fundamental legal principle. It's kind of like the legal equivalent of a knockout punch in a debate. He's basically forcing the other side to argue against centuries of established law. So what does that fancy Latin phrase even mean? It's actually pretty simple. It means if a law lists out the specific requirements for something, you can't just add new ones that aren't there. So, since the WP law doesn't say anything about restitution being a requirement beforehand, Marcoleta's point was that the DOJ had zero legal ground to demand it. Okay, so here's the really crucial part, the so what of all this. According to Marcoleta, the big problem was that by sticking to this made-up rule, the DOJ was basically putting up a giant roadblock. It was stopping key witnesses who, get this, had supposedly already named big shots like Salvadeco and Romualdez from getting the protection they needed to tell their full story. And this is why it was such a big deal. The numbers don't lie. Marcoleta pointed out that the WPP has a staggering 95.3% success rate. That's insane. It's pretty much their most effective weapon. So in his mind, stopping witnesses from getting in, all because of some good policy idea, was basically putting the entire case against the masterminds in jeopardy. And the WPP wasn't the only thing they clashed on. During the hearing, Marcoleta also went after the DOJ for cooperating with the International Criminal Court, the ICC, saying they were ignoring local laws. But the main action was about to switch arenas, moving from the Senate floor to the much messier court of public opinion. All right, let's switch gears to our second confrontation. This one's totally different. We're leaving the formal Senate hearing behind and jumping straight into the court of public opinion. And this involves a whole new round of accusations flying between two very well-known political rivals. So what happened here is former Senator Antonio Trillanes filed a complaint bringing back some old allegations against his rival, Senator Bongo. And the main accusations are twofold. First, a conflict of interest, because Go's family allegedly got government contracts. And second, that their companies didn't even have enough capital to handle such massive projects. But the source material we're looking at here, it pushes back, and it pushes back hard. It basically says, hey, these are just old, recycled attacks. The argument is that Go's family has been in business for a super long time, way before he was in politics, and that there's no actual proof of any wrongdoing. The source also mentions that Go is very careful to keep things separate, observing what they call delicadeza, or a sense of propriety, between his job and his family's business. And this timeline you see here, it's really at the heart of the defense that the commentary presents. The main point is, look, none of this is new. It's a pattern. These same accusations get recycled and brought up at very convenient times, usually right before an election, just to stir things up and create some political drama. Okay, so let's recap. On one hand, you have a legal fight that's stalling a huge corruption investigation. On the other hand, you've got this very loud, very public feud between two politicians. So, what's the connection? Well, according to the narrator of the source we're examining, these aren't separate things at all. Nope, they're two pieces of the exact same strategy. And here is the whole theory in a nutshell. The narrator suggests that all these rehashed accusations against Senator Gohl, that's not the real story. It's just a smokescreen, a deliberate tactic to distract everybody and pull our attention away from something much, much bigger. This pretty much lays out the whole playbook according to the source. Step 1, a huge scandal breaks and it points to some very powerful people. Step 2, all of a sudden, legal roadblocks, like that whole WPT debate, pop up out of nowhere and grind the investigation to a halt. Then, step 3, a loud, flashy controversy gets launched somewhere else, something that's guaranteed to grab headlines. And what's the end result? Everyone's attention gets diverted, and that original, way more serious scandal just kind of fades away. So we've walked through the arguments, and we've explored the theory that ties them all together. And it really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? When you see a new political firestorm erupt in the news, is that the real fire? Or is it just a bunch of smoke, deliberately created to make you look away from an even bigger fire burning somewhere else? It's definitely something to think about the next time you see the headlines suddenly change.